and welcome to another Purveyor of Light Lightroom Quick Tip. Today we've got an unusual one. We had a viewer contact me and asked me, he says, would you consider editing one of my photos? And he explained to me that, he had just gone on a wildlife shoot and a little bit of a safari of sorts. And he wasn't quite happy with the edits and pictures that he got from the things. And he says, he'd be really curious to see what I would do with some of his photos. So I went ahead and picked one of his photos, and I said, sure. And he did put one requirement on me, and that was I wasn't allowed to use any plugins, any tools other than Lightroom itself. So Photoshop is out of the question. That's his restriction, because he wants to be able to follow along and see my edits just in Lightroom. So I happily agreed, and we're going to go ahead and see what we can do about his photo. Now, before I get started, anything I do is subjective, like all edits, all things with photography. It's an art form, and so and anything I do or say is not a criticism on the photographer, because everybody's an individual and everybody's a creative. So there won't be any negative talk whatsoever about what he did or what he didn't do on the photo. I think his photos were very good, and I think they need more little tweaking than really any major editing. Okay, so let's go ahead and jump in. First thing I'm going to explain is how I would look at how editing a photo. And this is for any photo. I go, what am I going to do with the photo? That's very important. Am I going to put it on a billboard? Or am I going to put it on a 24 by 36 canvas? Am I going to put it on the phone? Right? Am I going to put it on social media? What is my objective? And with that, I asked this gentleman what his objective was with these photos, and he said social media, mainly Facebook, Instagram, and so forth. And so with that in mind, the first thing I'm going to do is examine the photo that he gave, and I'm going to change the thumbnail size to his target. So I'm just going to move it up till I think it's about the right size for about looking at a phone. And I'm going to say, okay, that's about the biggest it's going to get on a phone if he was looking at it in Instagram. And so then I'm going to look at the photo for a second, and I'm going to examine it. And I see, the first thing I see is everything. My eye just has nowhere to go. It's the subject and the background are just messing each other up. There's no separation between the subject and the background. And that's a very common thing to happen. It's very difficult sometimes to turn around and get a quality background to separate the subject. And that's the first thing that comes to my mind. We've got to separate the subject from the background so that the viewer's eye is drawn to the subject. Okay. Other than that, I think it's a really nice photo. So let's go ahead and jump into the develop module. So into the develop module, here we are looking at it in a bigger view, and I can say right there, the background is distracting from the subject. We need to get some separation between it. Okay, I'll take a little closer look here. Okay, he's already done some sharpening. You can automatically tell the sharpening on the skin and the fur. So I'm not going to even attempt to resharpen this any sharper it is, or we're going to get too crunchy. In my opinion, we're a little too crunchy right now on the hide as it is. But that's okay. We do have some noise in the background. You can see that the background does have a little bit of digital noise in it, but not bad. Okay. And so everything does look good. The eyes look a little bit lifeless, but we could touch that up, I think. All right, so let's jump right in. First thing I want to do, I want to separate the subject from the background. And to do that, I'm going to go ahead and use Lightroom's select subject. let Lightroom do its thing. And let's put the overlay on so we could see it. And did a pretty good job. I can see here over in the by his horns on the antlers, we've got a little bit of area that's selected that shouldn't be selected. And so we're going to have to clean that up a little bit. So, but I want the background, so I'm just going to go ahead and invert this. So I am going to invert. Okay, so now that I have the background in, I'm now going to add to my selection where the I'm going to brush it in, and I'm just going to brush in the area that was misidentified. Okay, so there we are. So that looks pretty good to me. I'm going to reset all my effects by double clicking on it, and in order to separate the background, I'm going to turn off the overlay. So, but you see, it's just too busy, right? The subject gets lost in it. So let's see if we can blur it, change its exposure, darken it down a little bit, and blur it a little bit. Now, we don't have the power of Photoshop to do these things. I would get better results if I was able to do it in Photoshop, and there's no doubt about that. But let's make do what's in for the Lightroom. All right, I'm going to take the texture down all the way. All right, and I'm going to take the clarity down, and that does help blur the background a little bit, as you see. And sharpness, I'm going to drop it down all the way. And that's looking better. We are starting to get some separation. I'll show you the before and after. See, we are starting to get that separation in there. And the other thing I can mess with, because I'm limited to what Photoshop or Lightroom can do, this is the extent of my blurring capability from what I can see. So I'm going to need to work with exposure as well. If I drop the exposure of the background, that's also going to cause the subject and the background to be isolated. So let's just drop the exposure. And again, if I went all the way up, you can see I'm dropping the background of the darkness. But I'm going to do it just enough. Okay. And I think that's going to work very well right there. So the before and the after. And you can see what a difference that makes. Okay. And what we're doing is, why am I editing this way? It's because I want the viewer's eye to be drawn to the subject right away. When they look at a photo, I want to say, hey, I want your eye drawn to the subject. So there, okay. And I say right now we have definitely isolated the subject from the background. We haven't changed the photo at all. We've just worked with blurring and a little bit of exposure adjustment so that we could separate the foreground from the background. Okay, the last thing I see here is, let me see here, I'm going to come in on the photo. Yeah, the eyes are a little bit hazed, and if I was in Photoshop, I know how I'd handle this, but I'm limited to Lightroom, so I'm going to work with the eyes by doing another local adjustment to the eyes to see what I can do. All right, so I'm going to come up with the thing. I'm going to create a mask. I'm going to just do it with a brush, and that creates a new mask. And I'm going to turn on my paint on my mask. Lightroom's a little bit slow to respond, it seems. I'm going to add to it. Come on. Oh, Lightroom is definitely finicky here. Either that or I did something wrong here. I'm going to go ahead and just remove this mask. Delete mask. Okay. And it's a little bit of a lag. Might be due to the size of it. But let me try this again. Brush. And I'm going to click Show Overlay. And I'm going to start painting. There we go. That's a little better. And yeah, lag in Lightroom. All right. All right, so now I have the two eyes selected. And I have a mask of that. So I'm going to work with that. And let's see what I can do for adjustments in the eyes. I'm going to turn the overlay off. And let's see. I got some tools here. We got some iris enhancements. All right. Increase the clarity. I'm going to take that up a little bit. And the exposure, 0.3. And saturation, not gonna. So I am really limited to what I can do for the animal's eyes here. Animals' eyes aren't like humans, and it looks like Lightroom is strictly designed to work on human eyes. But we'll see here. Let me turn this mask on and off to see what kind of difference I made. Not much. Little bit, but not much. So maybe a little more clarity. And let's do the before and after. Okay. Before and after. Okay, good. I got a little bit of the catch lights. You notice the catch lights here in the eye now more. So the before and the after. I'm trying to put some life in the eyes. And I think that's about the best I'm going to get in Lightroom. Okay, but that does help. Okay, it does. If you look at the before and the after, it does bring a little bit of life into the eyes. So we'll get out of here, look at the photo again. And like I said, he's already done some major sharpening here. So I'm not going to sharpen the hide any further. The background we've softened quite a bit. We put a little bit of life in the eyes, and a little bit of a catch light in the eye, a little bit of shine, and that makes just all the world of the difference of bringing life into a photograph. And so I'm going to call this done. Okay, so here is our starting point before. Okay. Very little separation between the subject and the background. And so using a combination of blurring a little bit and changing the light values, okay, on the exposures, we're able to give that separation between the two. And I think we've got a pretty good result. So again, there's our after. And there's our before. And I think this is a very nice photo, very well shot. I give the compliment to the photographer, and I'm going to call this one done. So there you go. Our first installment of ever editing a viewer's photo, and nice shot. So there we go. All right. So it just goes to show you, you work with the tools you have, and you get the results on your hard work. So there you go. Till next week, you guys take care. I'll see you next week.